You can speak faith. You can declare faith. But if you don't walk in obedience to the things which you are speaking, then it becomes a vain word. It becomes vanity. You can say, I am holy, 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 while you're doing unholy things. That's vanity. That's vain. Then you move into the realm of self-deception, like what we see being spoken about by the master in this congregation. There are some who are Jews, who call themselves Jews, but they're not Jews. There were some who was considering themselves to be apostles who have not been sent. This is the importance of checking the credentials of people. There is one body, one faith, one baptism, one spirit, one God, and one master of us all. If we're part of the one body, then we are under one head. But what we find in this day and age that we are currently in is that there are many different bodies saying that they have the unadulterated truth. And everyone who doesn't fit into their body isn't part of the body or underneath the head. To this day, if you go on the internet, you'll even find yourselves teachers, you'll even find pastors who don't have congregations. You'll find prophets and apostles and this, that, and the other who don't have congregations. What they have is a laptop and a screen. And they may even say, I'm teaching, but I'm not a teacher. This is just my opinion. So what we have now is a situation where we have all of these voices, all of these opinions to try and draw your attention, to try and bring you into their kingdom without giving you the opportunity to check the credentials. And Master gave you the credential checker. Let me see your fruit. But if the camera's finished and you can't see the fruit, how are you going to check the credential? How are you going to assess, has this individual been discipled? Has this individual demonstrating the fruit of the Spirit? You can't. I'll expose myself and give you a good example of why you need to be in a body of believers. And I'm going to use my sister Julia as part of this example. So, when I was talking about an individual called Zedekiah. And Zedekiah is you're laughing. Zedekiah was a king in Israel. Now, as I was reading the Bible, I was reading two particular passages that say that Zedekiah was the brother of Nebuchadnezzar. That's the way I interpreted it. It was talking about Zedekiah, and it said, and it was talking about Zedekiah, and it said his brother. Okay, so that's one witness. And then I checked in another passage. So that was in Chronicles. There was another passage in Kings which said that Zedekiah was his uncle. And this is a verse which is speaking about Nebuchadnezzar. So my assumption is that, okay, this Zedekiah, he has to be Babylonian because he changed his name. His name was changed by Nebuchadnezzar to Zedekiah. He was placed there by Nebuchadnezzar. So my assumption is that is his brother, that's his uncle, he's Babylonian. So as I'm teaching, I've got two witnesses which are telling me that this is a Babylonian. So in passing, in teaching, I mention that this guy is a Babylonian. So my sister, she comes along and she makes a comment, she sends me an email, and that email in Juliet's way points me to a particular passage which helps to bring more truth to the matter. This passage is in Jeremiah 37 verse 1 that lets me know that Zedekiah was actually another son of Josiah. So there are two passages, two witnesses which give paint a picture that he is a Babylonian. He's either the brother of Nebuchadnezzar or the uncle of Nebuchadnezzar. But when you look at the third passage of scripture, it gives you, it flavors the dish more. So now you can put the other pieces together and come up with the conclusion. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you are not part of a body, if you do not have fellowship, whether it be online with a particular group or whether it be in-house with a particular group, you can come to conclusions which are not necessarily biblical conclusions. The role of the body is to minister to the body. It's to bring edification. It's to help prepare each other for the return of the Messiah. And sometimes you can read stuff in the scripture which isn't scriptural. Doesn't mean that you're intentionally making a mistake. What it means is that you've read something and you've come to the wrong conclusion. And here is your brother who will help you. Paul went up to Jerusalem because Paul needed some help. Peter tried to help him. James tried to help him. And once they received the help, they went back. But when you're doing things online and you have no accountability, you can come with a doctrine which you may see in the scripture, which isn't scriptural at all. This week, I was in this discussion with an individual this week who was trying to tell me that, or trying to tell all of his followers that essentially you can sacrifice animals. And one of the things that he was pointing to was essentially saying that you can, here are the offerings of sacrifice which continue to this day, and one of them was the burnt offering. And in like a private message, I had to get hold of the brother and say, have you read Leviticus 1? Leviticus 1 describes the burnt offering to be for atonement. Are you suggesting that Yeshua is not your atonement? And we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Again, I'm saying this because if you don't have accountability, if you're not part of a fellowship where questions can be asked and answers can be received, you may be following people who are passionate about a truth that they have, but it's not the truth that leads unto salvation.